Today we're going to talk about preserving today's born digital materials for the future. Born digital materials are very fluid in nature when it comes to who is creating the content, who is consuming the content, and how the content is being stored. And really, in order to preserve this type of digital material, information organizations will have to engage with the born digital creator in order to create partnerships. Mass popularity of the internet and other digital technologies, we're really in the midst of a digital dark ages. The idea of the digital dark ages first came about in the 1990s, and it's a concept coined by Terry Cooney and really addresses the issues involved in the mass adoption and popularity of the internet. Mainly, as technology advances, our preserving of the digital material created on older technology is in danger. That is, unless we take an active role in preserving it. I think that this image does a good job of explaining this. I'm sure most, if not all of us, remember saving digital files on floppy disk. These were popular storage devices in the 1990s and early 2000s. However, as technology advanced, floppy disk fell out of use, and newer computers are now no longer built with floppy disk capabilities. Essentially, this means that all of the information stored on the floppy disk of yesteryear is inaccessible. That is, unless the creator of the floppy disk content transferred the material over to a newer technology format. But the reality is that most users of digital technology are unaware that the technology they use today may not be accessible tomorrow. Therefore, preservation measures are not utilized as much as they should be. What is the current situation of our digital landscape? Well, at least 92% of information is stored online, and of all the digital content created, only 57% of that content is backed up in some way. And this negligence in backing up data is quite alarming when we consider the fact that the average website has a lifespan of 44 days or less, and that technology in general only has a shelf life of about 18 months. So, what else do these statistics tell us? Well, digital information is at risk of being lost. Our digital cultural heritage is also at risk when you consider the fact that most of the 21st century experience is documented online in a born digital format. While analog experiences do exist, such as scrapbooks and journals, since the 1990s, society has taken a noticeable preference for digital experiences, such as blogs and other social media. Our society has a false belief that digital technology and the internet are infallible and have infinite access and storage capabilities. However, the reality is that our digital technology is unstable. Hardware and file formats are constantly changing, and this means that not only is the potential for losing access to these materials high, but the possibility of losing our cultural heritage, which is largely documented online, is also in danger of being inaccessible. To combat this, information organizations and professionals really will have to take an active role in helping their users to preserve this information. So, how do we do this? Firstly, we'll have to engage with the people creating the born digital content and educate them on the dangers of digital information loss. Once we've begun engaging the digital creators, we can partner with the digital creator to create digital repositories that train the digital creator in selecting and preserving their digital content. So, digital information and born digital in particular have a couple of characteristics that make them unique. Firstly, much like oral culture, digital information is thought of primarily at the point of creation and use, and not much attention currently or historically has been paid to preserving this content for the future. However, this really opens up our content to being lost. If we don't preserve this content at the point of creation, then we risk that the content will disappear for future generations. Much like oral cultural traditions, the only way to preserve the content is to continuously manage it. In oral traditions, that means telling the oral story over and over again and teaching it to younger generations. In the digital environment, continuous management involves changing file formats, the viability of internet addresses, preserving more complex multimedia objects, and adhering to the different legalities of digital information, such as copyright, licensing agreements, and terms of use. I think that we can safely say that in a lot of ways, managing digital information is complex and has a lot of moving parts. And the second characteristic of digital information is that it's highly democratic in nature, meaning that anybody and everybody creates digital artifacts. Moreover, the democratic nature of digital information means that users are not just consuming information online, they're also creating information for personal use, adapting it, collecting it, and collaborating in the production of this digital content. And this really produces an overflow of amateur content that relies on the informal experience of society. That is, the experience of the everyman, which is expressed on social media, blogs, and photo sharing sites. This is somewhat of a renaissance for information. While we do have records from the past expressed as informal experiences, a good portion of our historical or archival record is expressed in formal documents, such as government records like census records or newspaper articles. And while that type of information is important to know, we do lose some of the human experience and thought process of individuals from looking at solely the formal records. And this is really where digital information has the potential to shine for future generations and study. It is an informal record that really captures the human experience and history from many points of view. If we look at the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine, we can see a pretty good illustration of just how much digital information can change and adapt over time. Here's the homepage of the blog The Fitnessista. On the left, you see a screen capture from October 2008, and on the right, there's a screen capture from September 2016. Since 2008, the Wayback Machine has captured information from this blog 591 times. I think that's pretty obvious that this blog has seen many changes over the years. What started out as a simple WordPress blog is now a very dynamic blog with several links and sophisticated layouts. But I'm not showing this because the blog is aesthetically more appealing. Rather, I think that this blog really illustrates how much a website and technology can change over time. If you'll recall from earlier, the average website has a lifespan of 44 days. Therefore, if technology like the Wayback Machine didn't exist, it's very likely that the early days of the Fitnessista blog and other websites like it would be lost. And this really hones in on the necessity of taking a proactive role in preserving our born digital content. We should all be very fortunate for the Wayback Machine because without it, many web records would be lost. However, the digital content being created is increasingly more and more every day, and it's becoming even more important for us to preserve this digital information. We cannot rely solely on the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine anymore. We must preserve this type of content as well. In order to help preserve the quickly growing and changing born digital content available online, information organizations and public libraries in particular will have to redefine their roles for users. The public library's new role must entail the promotion and access to community knowledge, which is largely found online as born digital artifacts. And this is not necessarily a new idea. In fact, we can adapt Ranganathan's 5 laws of library science to accommodate the library's new role in our digital information environment. In particular, Ranganathan's fifth law says that the library is a growing organism. This means that the library will adapt to support the community and its users' needs. In today's age, this means that the library must support the user in using technology to support and share information and community knowledge globally. Libraries have always been concerned with the ease of access to information for all users. We're just seeing a new adaptation of this, which is digital access and use. Newer technology like smartphones, tablets, computers, and other wearable technology means that the library user is not just a consumer of information, but they're also a creator of information. And the library will have to act as a facilitator of that knowledge. The library must consider its new role to act as a guide and go between to preserving this new digital content. Without doing so, much of our digital content and our community knowledge will have the potential to be lost in cyberspace. We acknowledge the library's new role as not only providing access to knowledge, but also as acting as a facilitator of community knowledge. We can begin to develop co-created community repositories. These repositories will have to leverage the importance of the digital creator and the information organization, or library, in working as partners. The digital creator must be an active stakeholder in the process of preserving this digital material. The point of these co-creative repositories will really be to tell an authentic story of our digital culture. So without the buy-in of the digital creator, a lot of the born digital content being created will not be preserved, and thus our digital culture will be lost. We want these repositories to have value and appeal for all. So we'll really want to get digital creators to buy into the preserving of their materials. So, to build these repositories, we'll have to first educate the digital creators about the dangers of digital information loss and really teach them about the importance of file formats and continuous management of their digital content, which we've already talked about today. But even more important to this process will be educating digital creators about the selection and evaluation process involved in preservation. Understanding how to evaluate is an essential step to preserving this content simply because there is so much of it. Studies have shown that digital creators have a predisposition to just save everything. However, shifting sifting through an infinite abyss of every digital record will be cumbersome, if not impossible, for future researchers and users. So, what we can do is teach digital creators about the archival process of assigning primary and secondary values. And if you're unfamiliar, a primary value is associated with what the original value or purpose of the item was, and the secondary value is associated with deciding what future generations might value about the item. And really, the secondary value of an item will change over time. So, assigning value to images really is a good way to see why we might want to train digital creators in acknowledging value systems and using them in the curation and preservation process. Images and photographs are notoriously difficult for information professionals to catalog because they struggle with determining what's most important, the facts surrounding the time, contextual meanings, or the origins of a particular subject in the photograph. Historically, photographs are also hard to assign value to because we don't always evaluate them at the point of creation. Oftentimes, we wait a long time before evaluating them, and this leads to issues when it comes time to assign original value and future value. This issue is just as pronounced with born digital images. In a study done in 2014, a group was shown a variety of images found on Flickr and asked to determine what had value for preserving. All of the respondents agreed that the image on the left, an image documenting the Super Bowl, had lots of value for them, while the image on the right had little value for them. These respondents could see the value in the Super Bowl image because it was a recent event and they could remember the events surrounding the picture. But the abstract art image was problematic for them because they had no information about the image. The respondents wanted to know more information about the abstract art before they passed a value judgment. And this study really hones in on the importance of assigning value at or close to the point of creation, because without doing so, the reason for creating the digital object will be lost. And if the original reason for the creation of the object is lost, it may be difficult to assess uh, what the future importance of the item is. In the examples on the previous slide, we can see the essential elements needed for preserving born digital content. One of the most important things for preserving this content will be early intervention. We must begin to think about preserving this content at or close to its point of creation, because without doing so, we risk losing not only technical access to the digital object, but we also lose the context behind the object, and we severely limit our ability to assign what the primary and secondary values are to these digital items. We are living in an information democracy. This is both a wonderful time and a precarious time for our culture. On the one hand, the internet and digital technology has really revolutionized how we communicate with one another, share knowledge, and create digital collections. But on the other hand, many digital creators lack an understanding in how to preserve their digital content. This means that much of our digital heritage is in danger of being deleted, both on purpose and accidentally. To combat this, we of course must educate digital creators on the technical aspects of digital items and preservation. But what will be even more important is educating the digital creator on how to appraise their own digital items for preservation. The key to preserving born digital content for the future will not be about information organizations taking the lead in consuming and assigning value to digital items. Rather, the information organization will be a mentor. The key to preserving born digital content will be empowering its creators to assess their own items and preserve it themselves. It is through empowering the digital creator that we will be able to create a digital repository that is representative of our informal community experience. That brings us to the end of this presentation. Thank you for tuning in. For more information on this topic, please check out the resources at the end of this presentation.